Welcome back to the Mike Huckabee Show. We talked to John Stemberger some time ago, back during the controversial decision of the Boy Scouts deciding that they were going to open up their ranks to homosexuals. They did decide they would not allow openly avowed homosexuals to be Scout leaders, but they really reversed a long-time position of the Scouting organization, and one that had even been held and affirmed by the Supreme Court, that as a private organization, they could determine who was going to be their members. Well, you can imagine there have been many people, myself included, quite unhappy for this organization to capitulate to the pressure of, a handful of militant homosexuals who decided that the Boy Scouts ought to be the next target organization to change. And so John Stemberger did not just throw up his hands and say, I'm done. He himself is an Eagle Scout and founder of onmyhonor.net. And now there is a new alternative being formed to the Boy Scouts, and he's here to talk about it. John, welcome back.
Governor, it's great to be with you again.
Let's talk about the genesis of the organization. Obviously, this was born out of the Scouts' decision that was very disappointing to many of us. How did you decide, okay, we're going to come up with an alternative?
You know, when I started the campaign within the Boy Scouts to prevent the change from happening in late January, I really had no intention on creating an alternative program. We were just focused on the mission of trying to get them to not make the change. But immediately after they did that, we had realized there was just tens of thousands of people that had communicated with us, and they said, we're done, it's over, and that there needed to be something to fill the gap, to fill the void. And while there's a lot of great programs out there, many of them are just specifically denominational, either just for the Assemblies of God or just for the Southern Baptists. And there was not something that could kind of encompass the entire collective universal Christian church in America. And so what we did is a couple weeks ago in Louisville, Kentucky, we held a national meeting of almost every major Christian denomination had a representative there. Major national organizations that had an interest in children and families were there. And then also there were decorated Scout leaders, Scoutmasters that have been veterans who had walked away from the program. And we forged, kind of in a confidential setting, this new program. And it's going to be actually very much like, in terms of its principles, the American Heritage Girls, in terms of its statement of faith and values, which has been around for quite some time as an opportunity to do something other than the Girl Scouts. And actually, the American Heritage Girls was the official girl partner for the Boy Scouts of America for the last 12 years until they made this change and the American Heritage Girls has pulled away. So that's kind of how it all happened. It's a larger effort than just myself. There's a steering committee and a leadership team in place that will become a board. There's thousands of people, literally over 30,000 people separately have contacted us, parents, Scoutmasters, chartering units. So the BSA themselves, Governor, they estimated that somewhere between 200 to 400,000 boys, just boys, would leave the program. That doesn't count the adults, the chartering partners, or the Scoutmasters in the program, or the parents. And so there is going to be a huge void. We're not here to necessarily bash the Boy Scouts. We're just here to say there's an alternative for families that want a program they can trust and some more conservative, traditional values.
You know, you would think that the Boy Scouts certainly had to have known that the decision they made was not going to be popular and it would cost them a lot of members. And I had not heard those numbers. That's startling. 200 to 400,000 boys that are pulling out of the program. And so do you think they wish they'd reconsidered their decision and done it a different way, or do they just not care anymore?
I think that it's a great question, and I've really struggled with it. Was it money? What was it? I am convinced that it's because they had such a strong desire to be accepted by the cultural elite. They were literally just pounded year after year by, the Madonnas, the Bill Gates, the people out there who are screaming at them. And instead of defending their policy, which I thought was very fair, that they basically they just didn't allow you to be openly and avowed homosexual. They didn't allow gay activism in the program. That was basically the whole policy. Instead of defending that policy, they caved.
But, John, let me just interrupt and point out that neither did the Scouts tolerate people advocating adultery. They didn't advocate them, pushing for any particular sexual behavior. or anything. I mean, that's not what Scouts are about. So, I mean, I understand, and I think a lot of people seem to forget that it wasn't about excluding. It was about that this is not what Scouts are about. Scouts aren't about gender identity. It's not about sexual orientation. It's about teaching character to young men. And, if a person wanted to openly say, I want to be a homosexual, well, the reason he was being asked not to be a part of the Scouts is not so much just because it was same sex, although that didn't really fit the Scout code, but a lot of it had to do with bringing up sexuality in the Boy Scouts is really not what Scouts are all for.
Well, I think that's exactly right, and that was our slogan from the beginning: keep sex and politics out of Scouting. And this new program, we're going to focus not on sexual orientation. We're going to focus on sexual purity. We're going to allow parents to drill down into the finer issues of these matters and respect their jurisdiction and their authority. And we are going to be about camping, and this is going to be a very exciting program. This is not going to be just sitting around the campfire reading Bible verses. We're going to be unapologetically Christian, and the adults are going to have to sign a statement of faith. But any young person can join the program of any religion, and so there'll be a complete inclusion policy of the young people. But all the adults, from the leaders and the volunteers to the board and the staff, will sign a basic Christian statement of faith. What's the name of the organization going to be? Well, that's going to be announced at our national convention in Nashville, Tennessee, which is going to be September 6th and 7th. All the information regarding this is at onmyhonor.net. The reason for that is because we're doing very extensive polling. We're doing focus groups. We're making sure that the name is, we're looking at how it's going to affect various populations of people both within the Scouting community and outside the Scouting community. We also have intellectual property to deal with. So we're making sure that we announce the name, it's solid legally, it's solid principally, and that it resonates with people. And so it's a very big decision, but we're doing it properly and taking our time. Will the program resemble Scouts in merit badges and rank and activities and, sort of a progressive sense of participation in the program? Yeah, there will be a lot of similarities, and whatever rank a boy is in, whether they're in Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts, that rank will be able to transfer over into the new program. But there will be a lot of differences. It is going to be different, but there will be a lot of similarity, and it will be an advancement process that they can go through to achieve the highest award, which will have the same respect and dignity as the Eagle Scout badge. The parts of the program, Governor, we're asking folks to come to the National Convention so they can help us sift through these ideas. We have a committee of hundreds of people that have been working behind the scenes. They're in the Scouting program that have been developing the program, a group called Trailhead. And so they're in the process of, we're going to lay out all these ideas that we have and make sure that they're properly vetted. So we want to invite people to say, hey, what do you think about the way we're thinking about these ranks and how we're thinking about merit badges? What about adults who have been involved in Scouting? Maybe they're now Order of Arrow, people like me, for example, longtime Eagle Scouts. Is there going to be a way in which adults will be able to be part of the organization, show its support, and help, maybe be a base for it? Absolutely. We're going to need people to launch new units. We're going to need people to help transfer existing BSA units. We're going to need volunteers. There'll be unit leaders. There'll be mentors. There's all kinds of opportunity to engage. And we would love for nothing more folks to step up to the plate and say, I want to start one of these units in my local church and have them chartered. There will need to be a local church that charters the organization or some Christian organization that does charter and kind of sponsor the organization for it to begin. So you're going to be unapologetically Christian-oriented, and therefore taking a stand for Christian principles is not going to be an issue. Nobody can say, well, we don't want it to be religious, because you're openly declaring you are. That's right. But I do want to emphasize this is not just going to be another church program. I mean, this is going to be a robust outdoor program that's going to be amazingly cool. It's going to have a lot of the same things that Scouting has, but we're not just going to be kind of sitting around quoting scriptures all day. The faith will be a relevant part of the program. It will be a strong part of the program, but it's not going to be, just another Christian program to replace church group. John, how sad are you that it's come to this? I mean, I know that you're excited about the new program. I am too. I think it's great, and I'm thrilled that a lot of young men whose churches, just in good conscience, cannot continue with the Boy Scouts will have an alternative. But how sad and
disappointed are you that you have to do this because of the decision of the Executive Council of the Boy Scouts?
You know, Governor, I have 5 Norman Rockwell scouting prints framed in my office and in my home, and every time I walk by them, it's just, I almost want to weep. But on one hand, while I'm saddened of what happened, ultimately our trust and our faith is not in institutions, it's not in tradition, it's not even in our history, it's in God and His principles of truth. And so that's the rock that we're going to rely upon in launching this new organization. And, you know, a lot of times things have to die and be rebirthed in the history of humankind. And the greatest man we knew had that same process also in history as well. So,
well, I wish you the best. I want to tell our listeners that if they're interested in learning how to become part of the program, maybe getting one started in their church, or if they are now sort of, I guess, people without a portfolio. There are a lot of those around, organizations who have been involved in Scouts, and those troops are not viable anymore. Maybe they've lost the sponsorship because of the Scouts' decision, or they just want to do something that is consistent with their principles. OnMyHonor.net is the website. OnMyHonor.net. And, John, if they go there, they'll be able to find the information and make contact and go from there. Is that right?
That's right. If they sign up for email alerts, they'll get direct information on how to charter a unit in the fall. And the program will start January 1, 2014.
Well, I wish you nothing but success and appreciate very much your coming on and telling us about it.
Well, thank you, sir. We do appreciate it as well. Thank you.
All right, John Stemberger. Again, the website, onmyhonor.net.